Anchors up, sails at full. Welcome to the SloopCast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing all right. How are you doing, Jared?
I'm not going to complain. Actually, hold on. Let me do this. Let me do this before I turn the noise gate back on. Let's see. Oh, that was a good one.
Austin, right from the start here, trying to be funny right before we hit the record button, and our bot warns him from spamming.
I don't even want to know what he was doing. I said 3, 2, 1. Been doing that for years.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe it was just too fast. Maybe you were too fast for it. Kyle,
speaking of doing it for years, we've been talking for years, Jared. Different ways to fix college football.
Yeah.
Now that college football has changed, obviously from the playoff side with it, number of teams getting in, as well as what we just saw this week as well of what the NCAA was doing with the transfer portal. I think is now a better time than ever to revisit our ideas to fix college football and kind of start that over again with the all changes and what needs to still happen to fix it.
It was signing period, right? That they're talking about moving the early signing period and adding a third early signing period. When that's the opposite of what we should be doing. We should just be getting rid of the early signing period, move everything. But anyway, we'll get there. We'll get there. Don't worry about that. We'll get there. But yeah, we're fixing college football.
Changing signing. Yeah. I was just pulling up here. Yeah. Changing it, which falls on December 4th. They're looking to do it on December 4th. Which is a lot early, which is like a couple weeks earlier from what I remember.
So Kyle, this is an Ask SloopCast episode. We have a long history. Let me address this. We have a long history, as you pointed out, doing episodes about fixing college football. We once laid out a method for doing college football promotion and relegation, much like the English Football League does. That would never happen. That was never meant to be a realistic thing that would actually happen. It would be great. It would never happen. Last year, I proposed doing less commercial breaks, but more advertising on the uniforms and on the field to supplement that income. That was another suggestion. I have been advocating for years that the Big Ten and the SEC break away from the NCAA and govern them damn selves, which I think is very much on the table. We've been advocating for a lot of different things for a while now. And so this is an Ask SloopCast question, or an Ask SloopCast show. Episode. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Now, normally Ask SloopCast is, the folks in the Patreon, or excuse me, the folks in the Discord, discord.thesloopcast.com, always be plugging, asking us questions and us answering the questions. Every once in a while, we like to flip that around and ask the SloopCast a question, ask the SloopCats a question and say, hey, how would you guys blah, 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 blah. Now, Kyle and I each brought a potential solution as well. So I have a solution. Kyle has a solution, ideas to fix college football, and we have a few from the SloopCats. Kyle, where would you like to start?
Oh, good question. Good question. There's a lot of different ways.
Ask Kyle, where would you like to start?
This. Well, let's go with our SloopCats. Let's start with the SloopCats and see what they have to say here. So we'll start from the top here, going way back. So we've had to ask this question a while ago.
We've delayed this episode twice because of just news popping up.
Yeah, we have some order questions order answers here. So right, we'll start with Z Spikes here. Z Spikes, part of our SloopCats here. He says here, so we acknowledge the bowl games are meaningless. I think we have to figure a way to fix that. By the end of the season, our appetite for shitty, meaningless games is pretty poor. To fix this, the non-playoff bowl games would be announced in the same manner they are now, but instead of them playing in December, they become the team's week 0 or week 1 schedule games in the following season. A loss in this game isn't as detrimental with the new 12-team playoff format.
Agreed.
The bowl game venue sponsors get to promote the bowl games throughout the wasteland, and we're all excited for the bowl games, for all of the bowl game football. The teams take the game seriously because it counts towards their record. You can still go the additional NIL money route too with the long lead time. The ratings would be significantly better, as well as attendance at the games.
Yeah, and Suncard responded to that saying, I've said that a few times, which he has. Suncard has often mentioned the idea of moving the bowl games to September. And he also then says that all the postseason games should be tournaments. And then he does go on to explain that a little bit further, but we'll treat that as a separate idea. I think this is a home run. It helps to preserve the bowl games, which if that's a thing you care about, which I don't, let the bowl games die as far as I'm concerned. But if you're concerned about preserving the bowl games, having a actual regular season game that counts, played in September when we're all ready for some football, I think this makes a lot of sense. The one issue I have with it is that all of the bowl games are probably, and Spikes does point out, you can put some of them in week 0 and some of them in week 1. You know, over that same stretch, you do also have Labor Day, which college football likes to play games on Labor Day anyway. Not Labor Day. Yeah, it's Labor Day, right? Yeah. Yes. Everyone says yes. Yeah. So it's, I think this is a good compromise. If you care about preserving the bowl games, and if you care about preserving the bowl games, is basically it. I don't care about preserving the bowl games, but if you are, I would be down for this as a solution for preserving the bowl games. My only issue is that you're introducing a lot of neutral field games, which I'm not. The college stadium atmospheres, arguably the best thing about college football, inarguably the best thing it has over the NFL. If you're comparing the NFL game to the college football game, the best thing that the college football game has over the NFL is stadium atmosphere. I'm just saying, I'm not a fan of neutral site games. That would be my one critique here. But again, if this is a compromise of saving the bowl games, it's a good compromise. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm kind of in the same boat with you, Jared and Wade. Like, I don't really care too much about the bowl games, honestly, because like right now, it's like over half of the teams, over half of the Division I FBS teams gets to a bowl game. Like, really, should we be rewarding 6-6 teams? And heck, even teams that are below 500 are making it in too. Like, should we be rewarding all of those teams who had a subpar, not even a subpar, a 500 season, and reward them with a bowl game? I don't think so, honestly. Because you look at college basketball. College basketball, very, very little teams make it to the NCAA tournament. So there's
too damn many. What do you?
352 teams divided by 66, so 5%. 5% of Division I men's basketball teams make it to the NCAA. So if we do 12 teams for the new playoff in football, 134, 12 teams, 11%, doubling of what the basketball is. So in my opinion, if you don't make the tournament, you get a longer off season. Maybe there's an NIT variant. Maybe there's an NIT variant of that. I can go along with that.
Sun Card goes on to say, postseason should be tournaments. 12-team playoff determines a championship game. 13 to 28 can compete in a 16-team playoff. The insert your sponsor tournament championship. Same with 29 to 44. 3 tournaments played with relatively equated talent. The bowl games can become various stopping points along the way. So the Outback Bowl is like a tournament to Final Four East game. I'm not against, again, if you're trying to preserve some sort of bowl relevancy, I'm also not against that idea.
In honesty too, like how many of these traditional bowl games are there left? They keep changing every year. Like we always have that fun episode every year where we go through all the bowl games and we're like, is this new? I don't remember this from last year.
Well, it's just because the sponsor changed, and yeah.
I'm fine with. I actually like Suncard's first part there about having like teams 13 to 28. Okay, fine. You can have a NIT equivalent tournament. Sure.
The question is how many people would watch it?
I think more people than who watch a 6-6 team go against a 7-5 team in some bowl game down in Florida or Texas. I think there would be more eyes watching this just because it would be a tournament format because the games actually do matter. So I would say yes. I think the games would get more eyes on them.
I mean, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kyle.
I like that.
Let me the one we brought up is in the thumbnail. We've already made the thumbnail for this episode. I want to pay off the other thumbnail item. It just to not, it feels like the good YouTuber honest thing to do to pay off the thumbnail somewhat early. So I think I'm going to do the next one.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
I'm going to read a quote here. It's actually a series of a few quotes. The thing I would change about college football is to let the talent share in the ever increasing revenues. End quote. New quote. We're all robbing the same train, and the ones that are in the position to do the heavy lifting, the ones that risk life and limb out there on a football field are the players, and not just the football players, student athletes. New quote. For a long time, people say that unionizing would be bad if people aren't going to do it, if they're not going to do it out of their own will and do what's right. I mean, that's probably the next step. How I would fix college football is by having the players unionize. The players should unionize. Every other major sport that we watch, the players are unionized.
So there would be a CFBPA.
Yes.
Essentially.
Now, let me I actually honestly believe this because those quotes all come from one Mr. Jim Harbaugh. I don't find myself trying to blaze up Jim Harbaugh or agree with Jim Harbaugh too often. It's not a thing I like to do, but he's right. And one of the here's an instance in which I'd like to prove. I mean, there are many instances in which this would be beneficial for players. Let me lay this out. This week, EA Sports was officially sent out. Spike says, "Wow, Spikes, you're on top of things. The CFBPA is gonna fuck up NCAA 25, isn't it?" Huh. Interesting. You should say that. This week, the EA Sports sent out a form to all college football players, allowing them to opt in or not to having their name, image, and likeness in the new NCAA 25 game. Their reward, their fee for that will be $600 and a free copy of the game. And I saw plenty of people be like, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. It's not fair. It is not fair. It is not fair compensation. One, the players had no say in this. This is simply EA saying, take it or leave it. Especially the way they will market it too. Now there'll probably be additional opportunities for higher profile players. Like, who's going to be on the cover? Maybe a bunch of different people are on the cover, and
I've heard that they're going to make a very generic cover this year. Maybe following years, depending on how things roll out. I think I see where
players can promote the game through. Maybe EA puts on a tournament and they pay the players to participate in the tournament.
Or remember what they did a couple of years where they had specific
regional covers. Yep. So regional marketing, regional covers. There might be additional pay for higher profile players. That's on the table. They've hinted at that. But $600 and a copy of the game is crap compensation, because the game literally, and we know this for a fact because they haven't made one for 11 years. The game cannot exist without the players. It simply cannot exist without the players. Kyle, I did some math. You got 85 players. You got approximately.
Check your math then.
No, I did it before we recorded. I'm good at math as long as I'm not being recorded while I'm doing it. Then I get all fluttery and I can't do it. Also, I use the calculator. 85 players times 130 teams is, let's just say 11,000 players. It's 11,050 players. $600 times 11,050 players equals a total of $6 million. Let's just say $6.6 million. $6.6 million. For comparison, the NFLPA gets about $120 million for the name, image, likeness of NFL players. $6.6 million a year, $120 million. $120 million a year the NFLPA gets for the name, image, likeness of the NFL players versus $6.6 million for college football players.
Mm-hmm.
Why? because the NFLPA can collectively bargain for all of the players as opposed to each player getting a take it or leave it deal. This is the power of collective bargaining. This is the power when both sides can say take it or leave it, instead of just one side saying take it or leave it. Some additional math. EA Sports, the last time they released a copy of NCAA, which was NCAA 2014, they sold 1.2 million copies at about $60 a piece. That is $72 million. And we all know, if you've played an EA Sports game lately, you know the price of the game isn't where there's microtransactions. And I guarantee you there's going to be microtransactions in the new NCAA game. So it's going to be more than that. And it's also the first NCAA game that's been released in 11 years. They're probably going to sell more than 1.2 million copies, if we're being honest. But let's say 1.2 million. And also, like, not, games go on sale. It's so 72 million might be slightly inflated because not everyone pays full price for it. But $72 million. This equates to approximately 9% of the overall revenue of the game. Players are only getting about 9% of the revenue of the entire game. That's crap. So no, $600 and a copy of the game is not fair. It's not fair. It's what happens when only one side can say take it or leave it. And this is only one example. This is only one example of how the players not being organized constantly screws them over. And I guarantee you, one of the reasons, and by the way, there's been one time in which college football players have organized. And no, I'm not talking about that time the Northwestern players tried to unionize. There was another instance in which players across college football organized. Do you remember when that was? It's the year 2020, when Justin Fields and a bunch of players from some other teams all got together and started talking with a collective voice about playing football that year. Guess what ended up happening? They ended up playing college football that year.
Yep.
The NCAA and all of the college institutions, they saw players start to organize. And I guarantee you, behind closed doors, there were conversations of like, if we don't do something about this, this organization is going to turn into unionization. I think all the players, and I would do this by conference, not by the NCAA, because we don't want, we don't want to be playing by MAC rules, right? I think every single player in the Big Ten should join a Big Ten players union. I think every single player in the SEC should join an SEC players union. You can just keep trickling that down. And by the way, once the final hammer drops and we have a Big Two, which is coming.
It's coming.
Player unionization is going to have to happen. And with that, Kyle, because we also like to get paid, we're going to take this to a quick commercial break. If you want to avoid these commercial breaks, please go ahead and join our Patreon, patreon.thesloopcast.com. You get ad-free version of the show, and it's only the minimum version of our Patreon is $3 a month, or you can pay for 12 months up front, and it's only, I think, like 32 something. So we're going to go ahead and kick that over to commercial. Okay, Kyle, where do you want to go next? We have Spikes and SunCard's solution. We have my solution.
Let's go back to the SloopCats here.
Okay.
We'll just do a funny one to start us off after the ad break here. Got here one from Buckeye Zach here, just because I like this one. It's not going to fix it, but I think it will make college football that much more fun to watch throughout the year, not just certain parts of the year.
Sure.
College football would be better if weeknight MACtion was the entire season, not just November. Wouldn't it be fair? It starts like mid-October, end of October, but yes, I agree.
100%.
All.
I would welcome it more in September than I would. Again, going back to what SunCard and Spikes were saying, when are we most thirsty? When are we most hungry for college football?
Yeah, it's that September, especially like a lot of those first weeks. There's not really a ton of like great games compared to October and November. That's when we're craving it more because we want more games because of more often than not the lackluster of games that we see in the early weeks of the college football season. So I welcome MACtion during weeknights in September.
100%. Some Wednesday, Tuesday night MACtion games. The problem with this is that the MAC teams play on Saturdays during September because that's when they're collecting paychecks for getting walloped by the big schools.
That is true.
That's why this won't happen. Again, maybe if we get to a point in which there is a big two, and maybe
here's
teams aren't lining up to play MACtion anymore.
Just thought of an idea. If you're wanting to play a MAC team, like if you're scheduled to play to a MAC team, you have to play them during the weekday.
No.
So like a Thursday or Friday.
No. Remember what I said before about how the EA Sports gets to say take it or leave it because they have all the power, and because the players aren't unionized, they have no collective power. Well, okay. In this scenario, Ohio State has all the power. And they say, hey, Toledo, 1.2 million to show up on Saturday, take it or leave it. Because if Toledo says no, Akron will say yes. If Akron says no, Ohio will say yes.
Or they'll go to like the Sun Belt or go somewhere else.
Sure. Like, that sounds nice, Kyle, but they have no negotiating power. Ohio State just moves on to UNLV or something.
All right. Another question here, which is kind of the point that I've really wanted to focus on about fixing college football, because previous episodes that we did a number of years ago, fixing college football, it's going to come down to two conferences, writings on the wall. It's going to happen sooner or later here. But I think the big thing that's really hurting the players here, it's really hurting them, it's this whole signing period and the transfer portal period too. Like they happen too close together. They happen like right away, right out as soon as the season ends here. And and they both happen at the same time in December, and it's just a big disaster here. Remember a number of years ago, there was a lot of people talking about it for a few years here, where a lot of underclassmen left to give the NFL a shot, and how many of those players didn't even get drafted or even get a shot to a practice squad at all. And they just couldn't go back to college football because they declared. And once you declared at that time, it's like, all right, you can't come back to college football. Now, those rules have changed for the better for the players, and I'm all for that.
Because NIL is a thing, players can now hire agents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But you look at the transfer portal from 2024 here. Over 2,200 players, almost 2,300 players entered the draft, entered the transfer portal. 43% of those, 43%, so about 900 almost 1,000 of those players still do not have a home.
Yeah.
They still are in the transfer portal. They still don't have a home. And I think a lot of that, it has to come down to when early signing period happens and also when the transfer portal happens too. So I think to fix college football, part of it is fixing when the transfer portal happens and when the signing periods happen. Now, I'm all for, I believe that the transfer portal should happen, sure, like maybe the week after the conference games, the conference championship games. The week after that, okay, transfer portal opens up, players can go ahead and transfer.
I think it should be a week
cool.
after the title game. That way all the players are entering the portal at the same time.
Well, I mean, there's those other caveats too, depending on when your team plays.
Yeah, but I'm saying everyone should.
Okay.
I'm saying everyone should. I'm saying the portal should open for everyone after.
And I believe that the signing period, should be like after
the signing period for recruits.
Like
if you move to recruits,
for recruits. Yep. Okay. For recruits. Yes. For recruits. Those should happen after, like, give a period of time after the transfer portal happened. And then the signing period happens.
Just go back to traditional National Signing Day and get rid of the.
So the one thing here, and I hear you, Jared. I hear it, and I've always thought that way too, because I always miss a second Christmas, that first Tuesday in February of signing day, and just seeing all the news and just those old fax machines get dusted off and and all that too. A lot of fun that happens during the signing day here. But a lot of players do take advantage of being able to enroll early in January to get into the program, to start.
Players could enroll
their career and all that.
Players could enroll early before they move National Signing Day. That happened before they moved National Signing Day.
But does that also affect them with their scholarships though? Because they haven't technically signed, so they're not on scholarship. So how does that affect them with their what they would pay to the university then?
I don't know, man, but they figured it out.
Yeah.
They figured it out before they moved National Signing Day. Like, kids enrolling in the spring happened before they moved National Signing Day, or before they added the early signing day. It happened before that. It can happen after that.
Okay.
I mean,
so if they're
I don't know all the paperwork that made that happen, but it happened.
Okay. So I think that the signing period for recruits should happen after the national title game. Then that happens, and then the recruits get to sign their contract, or gets to sign away of where they're wanting to play their education or play their football careers at then.
and also something about education. Yeah.
And something about education in there too.
Because here's the thing, whether it be the transfer portal or with early signing or just National Signing Day in general, if you're doing that in February, most of the coaching carousel has slowed down by then. It hasn't fully stopped. It is mostly, and like, yes, you can, if a coach leaves,
you have 30 days.
But that has to be the head coach. What happens if your favorite position coach leaves? Are you allowed to enter the transfer portal? No. If your offensive coordinator leaves, no, it doesn't reopen the. It's only if the head coach leaves.
But then
it happens everywhere where these kids will sign in December, And when they're signing, they're often like, because of a relationship they have with their position coach, with the person who directly recruited them, they sign in December, coaching carousel happens, and then their favorite guy's gone. I mean, just look at Julian Sayin, who has transferred to Ohio State. Alabama did not release him from his signed letter of intent. He transferred to Ohio State. Julian Sayin should still be in high school, but he's already used his one transfer portal maneuver.
But I think that there is a second, or in my mind, how to fix college football is that you would have also a second transfer period as well too, and that would be after spring camp as well. So like,
and that does exist.
Yes. I'll just say the 1st of May, the first Monday or Tuesday in May. That's your second transfer portal period as well for 2 weeks or a week, however long they want to put that. Put your name in the transfer portal, and then teams can go on from there. Then I think that's, in my mind, how it should work is 1 week after the conference championship game, and then after spring practice.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but I think they should try to standardize when everyone goes in the portal. And the best way to do that is to not have, well, these guys have this deadline, but because these guys played in January, they have this deadline. And because these guys played in the national championship, they have this deadline. No, just a week after the national title game is when the transfer portal opens. Done. And again, just get rid of early signing period for recruits instead of adding a third one, which is what they're talking about doing.
Yeah. All right. Last one here we have. We got one from Austin. Here, Jared. It's a long one here.
Before we do that one, Odin has a short one. You want to knock out a short one first?
Yeah. There's Odin's here. Yeah. FCS teams should all go to bowl games.
All for it. You have 12 teams. Listen, you yourself said in this episode, 6-6, 5-6, 5-7, 7-6, 7-5, whatever team shouldn't be allowed to go to a bowl game. Okay, well, there's a million bowl games and we need to satiate that demand, apparently. Well,
you get rid of those. That's how you solve that.
Yeah, no, you're right. FCS have their own tournament. I'm not exactly sure when that finishes, but I feel like it would get in the way of their own tournament, which they rightfully take more seriously, I would assume, than a trip to the Liberty Bowl.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's get into Austin's here. Lots to go in here because he wrote a very long response here.
Okay, is it super duper long?
It is super duper long. Yes.
Okay, well then let's go ahead and do our. Let's go in segments. Okay, let's tackle. Listen, I encourage everyone to write a manifesto if they wanted to. Spikes gave us a manifesto of sorts. We got some tiny ones from some other people. I said do some tiny ones too. But yeah, but before we do that, let's do an ad break. Once again, we're gonna cut the commercial. Once again, you can avoid these ad breaks by listening on Patreon. You can either get your very own RSS feed on Patreon to put right into your podcast app of choice, or you can listen directly on the Patreon app. And you can enjoy an ad-free listening experience over at patreon.thesloopcast.com as little $3 a month or $32.50 a year or something like that. can get you ad-free listening, early access to episodes, premium access to the Discord server, all sorts of cool benefits over at patreon.thesloopcast.com. All right, Kyle, let's tackle Austin's manifesto.
All right, here he says here, how to fix college football. Split it up to just the SEC and the Big Ten on its way.
Yeah, that's happening.
Format 2 conferences of 24. That's happening. I think 24 is that magic number.
I think 26 is on the table. By the way, my suspicions, which I have long, again, go through our like Power 2 episodes that we've done many of. I often put Cal and Stanford in the Big Ten. It came out last week, that the Big Ten wanted Cal and Stanford, but that Fox wasn't willing to give them more money to get Cal and Stanford. So it didn't work out. But, the next time things reshuffle and I'm just saying, I'm saying I think it's 26. But sorry, go ahead.
All right. So with his here with 24 teams, each conference has 4 divisions of 6. I think we talked about this before.
I'm not a divisions guy.
Divisions here. Yeah, I'm not. I want us to get away from divisions here, but let's see what he says here. Regular season, all teams play 12 games. All teams play 12-game regular season schedules.
Okay.
3 games are open for competing against non-Big Ten or SEC schools in order to keep rivalries, get/give money, etc. These games don't count towards your win-loss in your division, but they do count towards your rating, which can help you get a wild card spot later.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's no different than what we currently have.
5 games against your own division on a rotating home-away schedule. 2 games against 2 teams who finished in the same spot of your division in your own conference the previous year. And then 2 games against teams from other conference who finished in the same spot as you the previous year.
This is based off of, as Spikes points out in the chat, this is based off of what the NFL does.
Yes. He says here, this ensures competitive games every year and will get you some teams at or near the top that are different on some occasions. But you would still have to play the teams in your division in order to level the strength of schedule, as well as the rankings being able to give a team with a tougher schedule a wild card spot. Any comments to that before we move on?
I would only do 1 or 2 games outside of the Big 2.
When he said here 2 games against other conferences who finished the same spot, I think that should be just like maybe just 1. Kind of think of like how the used to be like the Big Ten versus ACC tournament, something like that. Do something like that.
I would like to, so if there are 12 games, I think I would like to see it as 10 conference games, 1 whatever game, just whatever, and 1 game that, as you pointed out, is just sort of set up at random with the other conference. Again, as you said, kind of in the same way they did used to do the Big Ten ACC challenge in basketball. I almost would want to set it up. I almost want to set it up like it's baseball, or the way baseball used to be, where there was no interleague play. Like you straight up just wouldn't play. You just straight up don't play the other league until you get to the championship game. That puts so much bragging rights on that game between the 2 conferences. I can't believe I'm looking to the MLB for inspiration because they typically do most things wrong. But I think there's something cool about just never playing the other league until everything's on the line.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Playoffs here. So,
all right.
Playoff section here. He says, if you don't qualify for the playoffs, you're guaranteed one bowl game against the equally ranked opponent in the other conference. I don't agree with that, but because then you're getting back into meaningless bowl games where you have Vanderbilt versus Northwestern or something like that.
Yeah, and there won't be enough bowl games to satiate the... But here's the other thing. If they're doing what I recommended doing, well, and Spike says, or what if that was a week 0 bowl game the next year?
Well, that's that one game. That's that one game against the other conference in the Big Ten versus SEC matchup week.
If I really like the idea of having a bowl game for the teams that don't make the playoffs. I really like the idea of the bowl game happening where they play the team from the other conference again, because that's your only in my scenario in which the two teams don't play each other. The two conferences don't play each other. You'd actually get to play against a team in another conference, which you straight up don't have the opportunity to do all year. A Big Ten team never plays the SEC team except in a postseason game. That brings a lot of interest to those bowl games because if you're Michigan State, you get to play Tennessee, and that's literally your only opportunity to ever play Tennessee because you're not allowed to schedule them. And neither of them are going to go to the national title game. It adds some interest because, again, it's your only opportunity to play an SEC team or a Big Ten team. It adds some interest.
I don't agree, but we'll move on. We'll agree to disagree.
Fair.
You win your division. So still talking about playoffs here. You win your division. You make your conference playoff. To win the division, you need the best record of your 10 Power 2 games. If there's a tie in the rankings, then the rankings come into play. If you're one of the next 3 highest ranked teams in your conference... I don't like that
rankings even matter in this format.
If you're one of the next 3 highest ranking teams in your conference, you make the playoffs. If you are the top 2 division winners, you get buys in the second round. So it would be a 6 seed versus 3 seed, which are divisional champs. 5 seed versus 4 seed, which are both wild cards.
I can't get on board with the divisions. That's just me.
Yeah. Winners are reseeded to face 1 and 2 seed and continue until you have a SEC champ and a Big Ten champ who face off for the national title. So I think with that many teams, 24 or 26, I do think you need to have some sort of mini tournament, or
100%
or whatsoever.
And I do like the idea that the Big Ten has their own tournament and the SEC has their own tournament, and then at the end the two again like the NFL with the AFC and the NFC, right? AFC has their own tournament, NFC has their own tournament, and then at the end there's the Super Bowl. I think that's great. I think that's how the Big Ten and the SEC should do it once it is just those two. My only qualm with this is the emphasis on divisions, and I don't care about divisions.
Yeah, so I mean, how many teams would you have in the conference tournament then? Would it be, I think 6 is too many, because then you're looking at
12 teams out of 24. Well, no, it'd be 12. It'd be 6 teams out of 24.
6 out of 24. So you're
or 26.
Looking at, yeah. So you're looking at what was that 16% of the teams make make it. I think it's 4. I think it should be like 4 teams. The top four teams. Me not going with divisions, but top 4 teams go at it against each other.
What the NFL has
the conference champion.
The NFL has how many teams in their tournament now? Because it used to be 12, so now it's 14, right?
Yeah, 7 in each.
Yeah, so 14. And that's out of 32 teams. So they have slightly more teams. They have significantly less teams. What the hell am I talking about? Because that's 32 for the entire league, not 26 plus 26. So they have significantly less teams. See, I'm bad at math when I have to do it with the recording on me. But I got there. So my point is that it's still way more strict.
Almost half. Yeah. That's so like 14 out of 32. That's almost half. Almost half of the teams make the playoffs.
Yeah, I wish the NFL had stayed with the 12-team playoff, but that's a different conversation for a different podcast. I don't like the NFL move to 14. But I think if you were looking at 48 or 52 teams, depending upon if we're talking about 24 or 26 team conferences, I think 12 total, so 6 from each side is totally fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. I love the old NFL format. I love the old NFL format of having 4 teams play on the first weekend and 2 teams get a bye. That to me is the ideal football format. The NFL fucked it up.
Yep.
And I think each conference should do that. And then at the end, you have your Big Ten SEC championship game, which is now the national title because those are the only 2 conferences that matter. That's how I would do it.
Yeah.
So I agree with everything Austin is saying about the playoffs. I agree with everything Austin is saying about the playoffs, except for the whole thing about divisions. That's just me. Screw divisions. Just take your best 6 teams.
Oh, so you're saying 6, not 4?
I am saying 6. I think the 12-team playoff, and I'm counting both conferences when I say 12. The 12-team playoff is the ideal playoff. The NFL fucked it up. They should have stayed at 12. 4 teams play the first weekend. The best 2 teams get a bye. That is the perfect playoff format, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Big Ten and the SEC should each do that, just the way the AFC and the NFC used to both do that. I just want the old NFL playoff model applied to the Big Ten and the SEC. Again, my only difference between what the NFL used to do and what Austin's proposing here is division champions. I don't care about divisions. I don't want divisions.
It's just top 6.
Just top 6.
Top 6 from your record, and then you can do your whole tiebreakers of, I don't know. We'll figure it out if it ever goes down that way. Points. What I think you can probably model off of what the NFL does with their tiebreakers. I think, what do they do? Like, was it like point scored or point differential or something like that?
Well, you have your overall record, then your divisional record.
But like if we take out divisionals though.
Yeah, but that's how the NFL does it. Well, in that situation, you would it'd be your conference record, then your overall record, because there are probably 2 games, although one of them's probably a gimme. Also, this is how you get Notre Dame to shut up and join too, by literally saying, "Do you want to be relevant or not?" Which, by the way, is one of the reasons why the SEC will be the conference that pushes against this, because they know for a fact, as much as Notre Dame doesn't want to join the Big Ten, my God, they would never, ever join the SEC. They'd never join the SEC. So they know they're just handing Notre Dame to the Big Ten.
Mm.
That's one of the reasons why the SEC, one of the reasons why the Big Ten is all gas on going towards the inevitable of two conferences, and the SEC's over there like kind of pumping their brakes a little bit, is strictly because of Notre Dame. But it's inevitable. Two conferences is inevitable. Notre Dame joining the Big Ten is inevitable. This is all inevitable. The only real questions in my mind are like, where does Florida State go? Where does North Carolina go? Those are the only real questions in my mind at this point. And also there's like some bubble teams. Do they make it or not? But they're bubble teams. Who cares? Like, to me, it is inevitable. Notre Dame's going to go to the Big Ten. Clemson's going to go to the SEC. You can just go ahead and write all that down. It's going to happen.
Yep. All right, cool. All right. I think those are it here. A lot of great things here. Yeah, I like a lot of things that people at our Discord have posted in here on how to fix college football. I think most of these would make college football much better than it is right now. But in the end, it's going to come down to two conferences, and then what's going to come from that, and how will a champion be crowned once those two conferences are finalized or structured.
Yeah, and again, the other thing I would, as far as Austin's plan here, which I almost entirely like, I don't like the divisions, and I think that the SEC and the Big Ten should not play each other. I think each conference probably gets one or two games just to maybe help preserve some rivals, or maybe get a cupcake warm-up game in there, so 10 conference games, 2 out of conference games, but you're not allowed to play the other conference. No SEC versus the Big Ten. You're not allowed to play each other except in the postseason. I'm adopting the old MLB rule of no interleague play. I think that would be fun.
I think that's it here. I think that will end today's episode. You got anything else, Jared?
Well, Kyle, that's my line. that Kyle, do you have anything in Kyle's corner?
A couple of quick things here. Ohio State finally wins one on the road.
Oh my God.
In East Lansing. And East Lansing of all places. First time Ohio State, first time in 420 days that Ohio State has won on the road.
Yep.
And also the first time that they've won in East Lansing since 2012. So a couple of long time things that have not happened that happened Sunday night here. So Dale's buzzer beater there to put Ohio State in the win over Sparty here. It's such an odd game there, but hey, you take those wins. On the flip side, the women's clinch a number 1 seed in the Big Ten tourney. I think I think they're bound to do great things in the NCAA here. And as well, if we're going back to football here, Ohio State, right before we hit the record button, Ohio State hires former Alabama Director of Personnel Operations, Sam Petito, as Ohio State's Director of Player Personnel.
For those of you who don't know, that was Mark Pantoni's old spot, but he has since become a, quote, general manager. What all of that specifically means about everybody's day-to-day operations, I don't know exactly, but that's You know, everyone's like, well, who used to be that? Well, it used to be Mark Pantoni. Is Mark Pantoni gone? No, he's just general manager now. Again, I don't have clarity on what all of that means specifically. By the way, Austin, in response to my SEC and the Big Ten not playing each other, says, takes away so much fun from the regular season if you do that. To me, I want to leave something. What is happening? One of the things that was so great about college football was the insane emphasis on the regular season. And we are losing that. The 12-team playoff is us losing that. It just is. And I'm not saying it's a good thing that one loss could ruin your season. I don't think that's good, but man, it made the season kind of fun in a stand at the edge of a skyscraper sort of way. But yeah, I don't know. It's imminent death was fun. Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, that's what it is. But I like the cushion. Yeah. The roller coasters are fun because they're scary, but I don't actually want to die, which is why the roller coaster also needs to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sort of keeping the conferences away from each other during the regular season does put a lot of emphasis in the postseason, which might make that a lot of fun. I don't know. It's all things we'll figure out or won't as things happen. Tonight's ending music brought to you by Heart Attack Man. They're a Columbus-based band. You can stick around and listen to Heart Attack Man. So with all of that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support your local podcasters. Once again, this is Heart Attack Man.